Welcome to Twilight Fables, where fairy tales remember the dark corners they were meant to forget. Tonight, we tell of a test meant to prove nobility, but the real test was never for virtue. It was for survival. This is the Princess and the Pea, the Prince beneath. The storm had been falling for 3 straight days, dragging its grey fingers across the hills and rooftops until the entire kingdom smelled of whetstone and iron. The castle on the hill, a stern old thing of turrets and narrow windows, shuddered under the wind's hand. Inside, the hearths crackled and candles swayed, but the Queen sat unbothered by the thunder. She was a woman of habits and rituals, and this night was no exception. At her side stood a silver tray on which rested a single green pea. She turned it over in her fingers, holding it up to the light of the fire. It was small and unremarkable, yet to her it gleamed like a jewel. "Do you still play with your vegetables, Mother?" The prince's voice drifted from the doorway, lazy and amused. The Queen didn't look up. "This, my son, is not a vegetable. It's a truth stone." He entered, his boots soft against the carpet. "It looks like a pea to me." "That's because you lack faith." The Queen placed the pea gently into a crystal saucer. "A true princess will feel it through 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. A false one will sleep like the dead." The prince smiled faintly and leaned against the mantel. "And if she does feel it, you'll marry me off at last?" "If she does," said the Queen, "it means she's worthy of our blood, that she's sensitive to even the smallest imperfection, as nobility must be. Do not mock tradition, my dear. It has kept our family above the filth for generations." The prince said nothing for a long while. He stared into the fire, his reflection bending in the flames. Then quietly, almost to himself, he murmured, "Perhaps I'm just tired of being above it." The Queen didn't hear, or chose not to. When the thunder rolled over the hills that evening, a messenger burst through the doors, soaked and gasping. "A traveller, Majesty. A woman at the gate. Says she's a princess, seeking shelter." The Queen's eyes lit with something close to hunger. "A princess, you say? Bring her in at once." The servants scurried, and soon the great oak doors swung open to reveal a figure framed by the rain. The girl was young, perhaps 20, her hair plastered dark against her face, her lips trembling with cold. She wore a torn gown, the hem black with mud, and clutched a soaked satchel against her chest. I am Princess Lenora," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "Our kingdom was flooded. I seek shelter, if only for the night." The Queen swept forward, taking her hand. "A princess, are you? My poor dear, you are most welcome here." Her tone dripped with warmth, but her eyes were sharp as a blade. "I insist you stay in comfort, but of course," she paused. there is a little test we must do, for tradition's sake." Within an hour, the castle was alive with movement. Servants hauled mattresses through the halls, 20 of them, all embroidered, stuffed with down, and perfumed with lavender. The Queen herself placed the small green pea upon the bed frame, pressing it into the wood as though performing a sacred rite. When the tower of mattresses was finished, it reached nearly to the ceiling, a precarious monument to her superstition. The prince appeared as the last mattress was set in place. His eyes moved slowly from the bed to the girl standing beside it, her wet hair steaming in the firelight. "Do you truly mean for her to sleep up there, Mother?" he asked. "Of course," the Queen replied. "We'll see if she's who she claims." Lenora tried to smile politely, though she looked uneasy. "It's rather high," she said softly. The Queen only smiled. "A princess fears no height." The prince's mouth curved faintly. "Nor depth, I imagine." That night, Lenora was left alone in the high chamber. A single candle burned at her bedside, its light dancing across the canopy above. Outside, the rain thrashed against the windows, and the room smelled faintly of roses and wet wool. She climbed the narrow ladder the servants had left her, mattress after mattress, until at last she reached the top and pulled the blankets close. The bed swayed slightly beneath her weight, a strange, unsteady feeling that made her heart race. Still, exhaustion soon softened her thoughts. She closed her eyes, and then she heard it. At first, it was nothing more than the groan of the old castle, wood expanding, wind sighing through the shutters. But then it came again, a slow, deliberate breath beneath her. Lenora froze. Another breath, long, drawn. She held her own breath, listening. The storm outside seemed to fall away, leaving only that sound, close, deep, and human. She whispered, "Is someone there?" The bed creaked, answering her, and then, so faint she could have doubted it, came a voice from beneath the floor. "Can you feel it?" Lenora's skin prickled. "What?" she whispered. "The pea," the voice murmured. "Can you feel it pressing against you?" She sat up, heart pounding. The candle flickered. "Who's speaking?" A low laugh, breathy, amused. "Don't be afraid, Princess. I'm part of the test." "What test?" "The one that proves you're delicate, sensitive, perfect." Her throat tightened. She clutched the blanket. "Where are you?" Beneath her, the whisper moved, sliding through the timbers like smoke. "I'm the pea," it said. "I've been every pea." She covered her mouth to stifle a gasp. The air felt colder suddenly, as though the storm had found its way inside. He continued, his voice low and intimate. "They never feel me, none of them. They just toss and turn and pretend. But you're trembling. I can feel it through the wood." Lenora squeezed her eyes shut. "Stop this," she hissed. "Who are you?" He inhaled, and she realized with horror that he was sniffing. "You smell like lilacs," he whispered. "Did you know? Most of them smell of fear." But you smell clean, untouched. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the voice seeped through her palms, through her bones. Stop it! The laugh returned, soft and cruel. You'll do well. The Queen will adore you. She'll never know I helped. Then silence, only the rain and her heartbeat and the faint scent of something damp and human rising from below. When morning came, the Queen found Lenora pale and wide-eyed, her hands trembling as she tried to sip her tea. "My dear girl," the Queen said kindly, "how did you rest?" Lenora hesitated. "I could not sleep. There was something beneath me. I felt it through every layer." The Queen beamed, clasping her hands. "Then you are indeed a true princess. Only one of noble blood could be so sensitive. My dear, you are perfection." Behind her, the prince entered the room. He bowed low to Lenora, his face a mask of politeness, but his eyes gleamed with quiet amusement. "I trust you slept well, Your Highness?" he asked. Lenora met his gaze. Her stomach turned. "No," she said, "but I survived." He smiled, and something in that smile told her everything. That evening, the Queen held a feast in Lenora's honour. Musicians played soft tunes, and the air smelled of roasted lamb and spiced wine. The Queen announced that Lenora would stay as their honoured guest until the prince's courtship was complete. But Lenora barely heard the laughter and chatter. Her mind was fixed on the whisper in the dark. She noticed how the prince never looked at her directly unless his mother's back was turned. How he smiled faintly to himself when she flinched at small sounds. How his fingers tapped the table in slow, steady rhythm, like breathing. That night, she returned to her chamber alone. She locked the door, pushed a chair beneath the handle, and searched the room. It didn't take long to find it. A narrow crack along the edge of the wall where the baseboards met the floor. When she knelt and held her ear to it, she heard faint movement below, the sound of someone crawling. She rose quickly, her pulse hammering. The Queen's test was not a test at all. It was a lie the prince had turned into a playground. How many girls had come before her? How many had complained of sleepless nights and were praised for it, never knowing what had brushed beneath their bed? Lenora backed away from the crack and pressed her palms against her temples. "Think," she whispered to herself. "Think." Her gaze drifted upward to the tall canopy, the thick ropes that held the heavy drapery, the counterweights used to lift the mattresses when changing the sheets. An idea began to form. The next day, she feigned calm. She smiled when the Queen spoke to her, accepted compliments, laughed softly when the prince offered his hollow charm. She even agreed to another test. A second night in the towering bed, the Queen was delighted. "Oh, how marvellous! It is important to be certain." Lenora only nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty." That evening, as the servants prepared her room, Lenora made small requests, adjustments, really. "Could you tighten the ropes on the canopy?" she asked sweetly. "It felt a little loose before." "Of course, Your Highness. And perhaps add a few extra counterweights to hold the drapes firm. I'm rather light, and the wind shook them." The servants obliged, none the wiser. When night came, the castle once again fell to stillness. Lenora climbed the tall bed, her limbs trembling, not from fear, but from anticipation. She lay there, eyes open, staring into the darkness. Minutes passed, then the familiar creak beneath her feet. A breath, a whisper. "Miss me." Lenora's hands tightened on the hidden rope she had tied to the bedpost. "Not at all," she whispered back. The night bled into morning, grey and thin as a dying candle. When the princess woke, it was with a shudder rather than a stretch. Her eyes were bruised hollows, her breath shallow. The queen sat across from her, draped in a robe of muted gold, hands clasped lightly upon her lap. "Well, my dear," she said softly, "how did you sleep?" The princess swallowed. "I barely. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but there was something strange in the bed." The queen's expression did not change. "Strange?" "It felt like a lump," the princess said, "a shard or a knot. It pressed into my spine all night. I couldn't rest." "Ah," murmured the queen, the corners of her mouth tightening just enough to be mistaken for satisfaction. "How very delicate." She rose, the soft rustle of silk filling the silence. "You should eat, my dear. You'll need strength. Royal nerves can be so sensitive." The princess nodded weakly, unaware of the quiet delight curdling beneath the queen's calm. Throughout the morning, the palace bustled, but only just. The servants moved like shades through long corridors hung with age-blackened tapestries. They spoke little, and when they did, it was of whispers and fragments. "Did you hear her again last night? No one sleeps in that chamber twice. The queen keeps the test for her own reasons. It's not a pea, you know." The princess caught only slivers of these words. Every time she turned, the whispers slipped away like smoke. At breakfast, she tried to eat, but the bread turned to dust on her tongue. The hall was vast and echoing, with portraits that watched too intently. Her gaze snagged on one, a painting of a young man with pale eyes and dark hair, his expression sharp but sorrowful. "Who is that?" she asked. The queen looked up from her cup. "My son," she said, "Prince Theodoric." The princess hesitated. I haven't seen him." The queen's eyes lowered to her tea. "No," she said quietly, "you haven't." That evening, the servants prepared her bed again, the same one, with the same impossible tower of mattresses. The princess protested, but the queen only smiled. "One night more, and I shall know all I need to know." So the princess climbed the ladder again, each rung groaning beneath her weight. When she reached the top, The room stretched out before her in half light, the walls long and warped, the bed a strange altar. She lay down, heart fluttering. At first, she thought it was only her imagination, the faint tremor beneath her back, like something shifting deep under the mattresses. But soon the vibration grew stronger, like breath drawn and held. Then came the sound, a faint scraping, rhythmic and patient. It came from beneath, from deep within the layers of bedding, from under the wooden frame itself. She froze, listening. Scratch, pause, scratch. Her pulse roared in her ears. "Is someone there?" she whispered. Silence. Then, just as she started to rise, the bed moved. Not much, only the smallest ripple, but enough to make the brass posts tremble. She clutched the sheets. Stop! Nothing. The silence that followed was worse. When dawn came, she had not slept at all. Her eyes were raw, her limbs trembling. When she tried to speak to the Queen, the words stuck like stones in her throat. Days passed in a haze of exhaustion. The princess's once perfect composure began to unravel. Her laughter, once soft and shy, turned nervous, her hands trembling whenever she passed a closed door. She asked the servants to change her room, to let her sleep anywhere else, but none would meet her eyes. Only one dared whisper to her, a maid with a crooked smile and a trembling voice. "Your Highness, the bed was never meant for sleeping." "What do you mean?" the princess hissed. The maid's eyes darted toward the door. "The Queen built it after the prince vanished. Said she'd find someone who could feel what others could not. Someone who could sense what the rest of us ignore." The princess felt the chill in her blood. Sense what? But the maid only whispered, "Not what, my lady?" "Who?" Before the princess could ask more, the maid was gone. "Dismissed," the Queen said, "for disruptive behaviour." That night, the princess returned to the cursed bed. The moonlight stretched across the room, like thin, cold fingers. This time, she lay awake, waiting, not for sleep, but for the sound. It came sooner than before. Scratch, scrape, drag. She pressed her ear to the mattress, heart hammering. The sound was clearer now. Something shifting directly beneath her, slow and deliberate. She whispered, "Who's there?" For a moment, there was stillness. Then, a voice, so faint it might have been breath. "Cold, so cold." The princess bolted upright. Who said that? But the room was empty. She scrambled down the ladder, tearing at the bedclothes, mattress after mattress falling to the floor. Down she went, layer by layer, until she reached the bottom one, where her hand brushed something smooth and hard. She pulled it free. It wasn't a pea. It was a small, pale bone. She stared, her breath faltering. The thing was old and dry, its surface worn smooth. From the darkness beneath the bed, the voice whispered again, hoarse, trembling, "Don't wake me." The princess stumbled back, clutching the bone. The bed began to tremble. "Don't wake me." The voice repeated, louder now, more desperate. Then silence. The princess stood there, heart pounding, the bone cold in her hands. When morning came, the queen found her seated on the floor beside the fallen mattresses, her face pale as wax. My dear, said the queen, her tone gentle but distant, you look unwell. The princess raised her eyes. There's something under your bed, she whispered. The queen's smile was faint. Yes, she said softly, I know. The evening air hung thick and heavy over the castle, the rain still drumming in slow, relentless beats against stone and slate. By candlelight, the corridors seemed narrower, the shadows longer, the castle itself holding its breath. The princess moved through them quietly, barefoot, and dressed in the gown she had worn since her arrival, a pale silk that clung to her as though woven of mist. She carried nothing except a small scrap of cloth in which she had wrapped the bone she found beneath the bed. It was small, white, and smooth, and she held it now as though it might speak to her if she listened closely enough. She stopped before the chamber where the test had begun. The bed, still towering, still impossible, rose before her like some altar to a forgotten rite. Its canopy swayed faintly in the wind, though the windows were closed. The sound of the storm outside seemed to seep into the wood itself, bringing with it the memory of breath. She placed her hand against the carved posts of the bed frame. The wood was cold and heavy, and beneath her fingertips she could feel a faint vibration, a slow, pulsing hum, like something alive. Her breath quickened. Somewhere in her chest, fear had begun to settle, but so had resolve. For nights she had suffered the touch beneath the mattresses, nights when the prince's voice, low, teasing, almost intimate, had whispered to her, promising secrets she did not wish to hear. Now she knew. Now she had built her own test, and she would finish it tonight. The queen entered the chamber shortly before midnight, her golden robes brushing the floor. Her eyes were fixed on Lenora, unreadable. You look tired, she said softly, and yet your gaze is sharper than any I have seen. Lenora nodded without speaking. She laid the bone carefully on the bedside table. The queen noticed but said nothing, only folding her hands in front of her and inclining her head. My dear, do you feel ready for this night? Lenora's voice was calm. I do. The queen smiled faintly, and it was a smile that did not touch her eyes. Then rest, princess. But Lenora did not rest. She lay atop the mountain of mattresses in silence, breathing slowly, listening to the storm. The hours passed with the softness of stone grinding. Somewhere beneath her, the bed creaked faintly, the whisper returning, Do you feel me? Yes, she whispered back. The voice murmured again, Softer now. You shouldn't. Lenora drew her knees to her chest. I am done with your games. The hush of the room deepened. The sound beneath her became sharper, closer. The scrape of flesh or bone against wood. Then a breath, low, wet, trembling. The bed frame groaned as if in pain. Lenora felt the vibration through her bones. Somewhere beneath her, the thing moved, shifting itself closer. "Princess," the voice breathed. "Do not." The mattress trembled. Lenora exhaled slowly, her eyes fixed on the canopy above. Her hand moved beneath her sheets, to the rope she had hidden there, the rope she had spent days preparing. It was not a rope of silk, but of steel, braided with cord, heavy with weight. She had rigged it to the frame and canopy so that, when pulled, it would slam the bed down with terrible force. Her breath was quiet as she said, "This ends tonight." She pulled. The bed frame shuddered. The mattress tower groaned and swayed as though alive. A muffled scream rose from beneath, half of fear, half of surprise. The rope tightened. The canopy strained. The entire bed came down with a thunderous crash. The sound was like a heart breaking. A single cry, muffled and desperate, echoed beneath her, then silence. Lenora lay still for a long moment, listening to the storm beyond the walls. Somewhere, under the splintered wood, the breathing had stopped. She did not move. Morning came with a pale light. The Queen entered the chamber, her steps quiet against the broken floorboards. Lenora sat at the foot of the ruined bed, her gown torn and her hair loose about her face. The bone lay in her palm, stark white. "Well," said the Queen softly. Lenora's eyes met hers. "It's done." The Queen inclined her head. "And I am a princess," Lenora said firmly. "And there was something beneath your bed, something alive, something that should never have been there." The Queen's lips curved faintly. "Then you have passed." Lenora's eyes narrowed. "Where is he?" The Queen did not answer. She looked past her to the ruined bed and said quietly, "We have searched. There is nothing, no body, no sound, no sign of him." Lenora rose slowly, clutching the bone. "Then he is gone." The Queen's face was unreadable. "Perhaps," she said, "but the test remains, and you have proven yourself." Weeks later, the wedding was arranged. The castle brimmed with music, the scent of roses, and the murmur of guests. Yet there was no groom. The Queen told those who asked that he had been lost in the storm, swept away as if by fate. No one knew the truth. The princess, crowned in his stead, stood before the crowd with her head high. Her gown gleamed in the torchlight, her voice steady as she promised to rule justly. But beneath her calm there lay a silence that carried with it the weight of what she knew. Sometimes, late at night, she would hear it again. Not a voice, not quite, but the faintest breath, the softest scrape of movement beneath where the bed had been. "Do you feel me?" She never answered. She only closed her eyes, and the truth remained buried beneath 1,000 silences. The years passed, and the Queen grew old. The princess ruled wisely, beloved for her grace and strength. The story of the test became a whispered legend, a warning for those who dare to sleep beneath too many mattresses. But every night, in the quiet of her chamber, the princess would lay her hand upon the wood where the bed had stood. She could still feel it, the faintest tremor, like a heartbeat in the earth, and she knew he had never truly gone. The pea had been something else entirely, something far worse. And beneath the weight of all her nights, she carried the knowledge of it forever.